you are might be new to technology and cloud-based solutions, then that might help you giving an idea of like further developing the idea of how a cloud-based solution is made and what probably you want to look into and things around that basically. Cool. Any question at the very start? It's the very beginning. Cool. Awesome. Let me share my slide here. Cool. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yeah. Just come
Perfect. Awesome. And let me jump into next page. Let me give you a little bit, let me go back a little bit, back in the history. When I might be like a little bit like an elderly, like a fossil in this group. Probably all of you are younger than me. I started programming and working with computers back in 90s with a Commodore 64. If you you might heard of it or not, 64, if you're on Commodore 64 means 64 kilobyte. You might not even can imagine that 60 kilobyte of RAM, how that could work at all. But back then, we worked with that, and then we're just growing now, and then most of the system are gigs of RAM, and then now we are looking into terabyte RAMs and those sort of things. But let's get back to here. All of you sooner or later going to face problems and creating a solution for that problem. And the main things you would have is data. And then sometimes problem is visible, sometimes not. Pretty much the data is like all Lego pieces. And they're all together. And then you can't really have an idea of what the problem is. It's just everything looks fine. It's just the sort of pieces together. But when as soon as you're starting to sort them out, then you see like a little bit better, a clear vision of what's there, and call it sorting data basically. And then you're going to arrange those data and what does those very basic meaning of each data, and then how that's part of data contribute in the bigger picture, I would say. And then you can present them to the customer, say that, yeah, these data that we found. And to be honest, many people are just stopping there. Many companies are stopping there, not going further than that. They think that they got everything there. But to be honest, that's to me is just the beginning of everything. From here, that's your talents and your creativity kick in. Then you want to present that data in what way, and then how you can improve, how you can get things better. And that makes you outstanding, make you coming out of the crowd. So yeah, I can create a house with that. I can create a car with that. I can create a lot of other things, a lot of different functions, functional programs, functional, I would say, devices or whatever that would work. I mean, especially that would work with the startups. Sometimes you're just working with an established business. They know what's their problem, and then you're helping them to solve the problem. Sometimes, actually, even the problem is really not visible. You're going to identify and then going forward. Cool. And then one of the main things is coming when you have the data in front of you is that where you see those data, and then from what point of view you see those data. I'm always giving that example, that metaphor to my clients, or like the meetings that I'm there. I'm telling them, imagine a glass of water. If you see it from the side, it looks like a cylinder. But if you see it just at the top, 90 degrees on the top, it just looks like a circle. But it's the same object, but you can see it as a circle or cylinder, and then it's all depends on you, how you see and what's your point of view on that. And then based on your point of view, you can see the potential of new outcome of those data, and then what you can build on top of those data, basically. And then next level is, when I was younger, I always thought that, oh, I know everything. And when I grow and getting more experience, and then now I'm thinking that, oh, I really don't know anything. It's kind of like when you learn more, you're starting to think that, no, there are a lot more. And then what I know is just one piece among an ocean of different things out there. Then it's always good to like have a creative thinking that, oh, okay, I'm saying this, but is there any other way that I can see this data? Is there any other way that I can build this system? Or if I build this system with the method A, what's the difference if I build that system with method B? What's the pros and cons, and then the cost and the outcome? What's the potential future growth of the system? Those sort of things make you different from being just a developer, being just a solution developer or builder, to another level, being a business analyst who knows what's the current status of a business and what could be in future, what's happening. Solution developer, yeah, that add a lot of value for the clients or customers that you're working with, basically. And you might see that recently, many of you, especially if you're LinkedIn or anywhere, that the biggest threat these days, isn't it? It's like many people say there's a threat, many people saying it as an opportunity, and a lot of other things. I thought probably that might be a good point to just have a touch base and see what potentials that ChatGPT can give us. Is it really clever? Is it like a really threat? Or can it do what you can do in future? Or all those sort of things, basically. And I asked a few questions from the ChatGPT myself. I asked ChatGPT, how clever are you? And what's your IQ number? And then that was interesting. If you just read the answer from the ChatGPT itself, I give you a minute to read it through.
Yeah, I get these answers a lot of time as well.
Yeah. Then basically, it's really not clever. It is clever in some way, but it really cannot. I mean, the AI is still have a lot of way to beat us as a critical thinker, beat us as who are creative. Most of the things that ChatGPT doing these days, like any other AI system, they are working based on what already exists. And you might heard about the big data. And one of the things coming out of the big data is the cleverness coming out of there. Our mind is pretty much working on the same basis, but as when we are going into the next stages, we can develop new things and just new experiences, other things that ChatGPT is not capable of at the moment. And it might take probably decades to getting a point that it really could defeat many of us. Definitely, like those jobs are repetitive jobs, probably more be in the danger in the near future, but more creative thinking, those are creating new AI system. And then it's going to be a lot of AI system very soon. It's not just one AI that would exist in next decade or in 20, 30 years time. We are going to have a lot of different ecosystem of AI. Each of them will be specialized in different area, and they might starting to hack each other and then trying to guess what other AI doing, basically. And what I want to say is, like Google, when it first came, many people said that, oh, it's a threat for some people because some companies back then was doing research, for example, on some areas, and now everybody could research. And now To be honest, like even what ChatGPT is doing at the moment uh, is not that new. It's there like 2-3 years, but most of them are paid system. But ChatGPT was like really getting into news everywhere because it's free and many people can just using it. And they are getting it free because they can learn from the questions that you are making and then the feedbacks you are giving the system. And basically, it's just a win-win situation for users of the system and then reverse basically. Yeah, I tried to just get it short, and then I'm pretty much stopping here, and I'm ready to answer questions if there are any.
Awesome. So good. So good. Does anyone have any questions that this is automatically like brought up? I have a few that I can definitely talk about. Does anyone have something they want to kick off with?
Any question? Beat me.
Yeah.
I'll go since I do need to leave in about 20 minutes or so for the doctor's appointment. I'm sorry about the background noise. My flatmate decided now's the best time to do lawn mowing. And
That's good. No problem.
But yeah, my thought is that the singularity will happen in our lifetime. I mean, it's quite a controversial thing that everyone's debating, right? But I agree that creativity is something that's that is a hurdle, but also if an AI is able to look at everything from multiple angles and then go, let's generate all of the data based on all of these situations, then to some degree, the need to input data would just lie at the top, the top level where can we look at it from this scenario, and the bot does the rest. And I'm wondering, like, what will it take to hit, to eliminate that creativity process?
It's a good question and very hard things to answer. As you said, we are getting more clever and more clever AI systems. And I would say it's hard to say, to be honest, but it might be it happens someday. But I'm thinking that computers that could really beat us would be like quantum computers. They are way faster and very capable of more data processing. And what happens, they can, because what makes us different from algorithms currently running on AI is we can all of a sudden adding an element, and with the chaos effect, we are ending up from A to B, which B is very far from A, the point A. But those algorithms are not quite there at the moment because they would require a lot of energy, a lot of computing capabilities, which cost a lot. And let's say if you want really mimic the human brain, that costs gigs of watt data, and then huge computers. All computers at the moment around the world really needed to be connected to get like a human mind simulated in most of the ways that we are thinking. But when the quantum computing kick in, they would do things differently. They are going to mistake like us probably, and then correcting their mistakes while they are moving forward. They pretty much might have like learning curve as we are having. At that point, that would be, yeah, a lot of concerns might rise and a lot of things might happen. Me personally, that's quite like 2001, The Space Odyssey. One of the things was like quite still hitting me when the captain started to open all the processing units from the computer on the spaceship. The spaceship started to crying and begging, not killing me. Don't do that. And that was just say, oh my goodness, if it really could happen, the computer begging to be alive, that means they might really can think and then they can decide instead of us. But yeah, we just need to wait and see, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered directly your question, but that was my view of where we are at the moment. But yeah.
I mean, could we harness the energy that we are currently directing towards Bitcoin algorithms to do this computation power? Because right now that energy is taking up 1% of the world's energy resource, right? So if we direct that computing power towards this.
Might be and might not, because what happens with the Bitcoin, like generally generating money through cryptocurrency is creating a random number and getting that random number checked with a server. If it's matched, then you get the money. If not, then pretty much I would say a useless process. It's not a meaningful process. But if you want to be really doing like a meaningful process, which is processing data and then being fault tolerant and then reassessing and a lot of other things, I would say it require heaps more data. And then I might say that probably still a little bit more. And again, like even though that all the CPU things are very powerful these days, because I remember back 90s, we were really working with like MS-DOS or that are very slow comparing right now. I had like a CPU, like a RAM ICU from 90s, and then I compared with the same RAM these days. The difference is more than 1 billion times in terms of the data units, but they are exact same size. And then if you can imagine like in a few decades, we get the same quantum computing chips, I would say that would be, even sometimes it's hard for me to imagine, it would be huge jump forward. And then, and the algorithms and a lot of other things, that would be make a lot of difference in near future. But hopefully that's in a positive way for the human beings rather than being against us. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Very cool. Does anyone else have any questions that they want to throw out there? Some pretty cool topics coming up, actually. Where we go? I was actually wondering if you could talk a bit about, you know, kind of if we're thinking about this big picture sort of thing and, you know, future of how it's all going to play out. Do you deal much with have the scaled back version, like on a day-to-day, you know, are clients asking for a lot of AI stuff? Is there like, are you seeing this play out in your day-to-day, or is this kind of all just like stuff that's waiting to happen?
Just a short answer, I would say it's just like a day-to-day progress. It's like it would evolve every day and they're learning from us. It's then we are going to train them pretty much like every day by our searches, our inputs in terms of the content to the internet or any things like that. And then basically we are a part of that, I would say. And then what we are doing and what we are contributing could help a lot in future as well. But end of the day, more creative we are, more action we are taking, we are being a bigger part of the future, I would say. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think it was pretty good. I think it was pretty good. Yeah. I just saw a message coming in the chat. Just out of curiosity, what's your take on AI getting into art?
I quite like that. It's all depends on how we define art. Like I say, like 200 years ago, things that we're calling art these days was definitely not defined as art. Picasso definitely couldn't make a living 300 years ago, back in the Renaissance. And then but nowadays we are calling things art, which are different. And then definitely digital art and then AI art is very interesting. I like it sometimes. They are just different. And to me, art is something that make me feel good or just make me smile or something that is just make me thinking. And then in that time, yeah, they are doing good artwork, I would say. However, they are not understanding it. That's just different things. We are going to define what they are created because they are based on the algorithm, input and output, and that algorithm is done by a human at the moment. Basically, that human define pretty much from what's the input, what would be the output. Although it's not 100% control, but pretty much it's you define what's happening. I would say the person that's designed that algorithm is the real artist rather than AI. But at some point when the AI is starting to thinking, analyze it, and then think that, oh, I'm enjoying it. I mean, that could be like quite a moment if an AI say that, yeah, I enjoy the art that I create. That time would be probably a new human, a new, like an evolution happen, like in a different formats, not necessarily like a blood and the same way that evolution happened like a million years. It's just evolution happened by one of the species, which is human. And then that could be very interesting when we see that.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, pretty much like every day there are lots of interesting things coming out. And then I personally really enjoy see that changes happening. A little bit scary, to be honest, sometimes. But I'm trying to be a part of the change and then making a better future, hopefully. It's difficult because you are one out of infinity, basically, because when it's coming, like new ideas coming to place. And but any little move, I would say, make its effect. There's a theory in physics that chaos effect. Chaos effect says if a butterfly move in Amazon in Brazil, it could be an initiation of a storm happening in Asia. Pretty much crazy, but that's sort of same thing could happen in the digital world, I would say. A single crazy idea could change the way that the whole technology going forward. I would say sometimes like those creative ideas even coming from the movies, and I'm inspired sometimes with the really good movies that was like Space Odyssey is still inspiring me in many ways. And the other one I quite was touching was Ex Machina, 2014. That was one of the idea behind the movie was outstanding. I quite liked it. An AI machine was trying to convince the person that's controlling the machine that the AI is capable of taking care of herself. And then it's finally, yeah, I'm not going to ruin the movie if you didn't see that. It's definitely worth to spend time and see the movie. Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, it's interesting actually. Oh, sorry, go for it. Did you?
No? Not me. Yeah.
Nope, not you. Yeah, I just want to say it's interesting how much is taken from fiction and from like novels and ideas that come from, like completely different industries almost. And then 20 years later, like I think one of them was automatic opening doors, which I think came from like Star Trek or something like that.
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
it's just such a part of daily life.
Everyday life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
just crazy. Yeah,
yeah. That's awesome.
yeah, and a lot of things happening in physics that could lead a lot of changes. And because you know that the internet came from CERN lab back in 80s, and then now becoming like everyday life, and then things happening in the quantum physics ended up being CPU and all the digital uh, computational devices things, and then a lot of things happening these days in CERN as well that could affect our future in terms of the particles they're going to discover and a lot of other things. Not me in the near future, but it could potentially affect humans in 100 years or in a couple of decades. But or even like, yeah, a lot of crazy things to be honest. Yeah.
Also, there are a few comments in the chat. So Chris says heaps of haptics come from Minority Report as well.
What was there? Heaps of haptics came from.
So the touch, swipe, and all of that, a lot of it came from Minority Report when they were one of the first to feature that. It was quite interesting to learn that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Like, because sometimes what happens is what I say. Some people are critical thinkers. They are coming with the new ideas, like they are having like really novel ideas. And some people are good at implementing those ideas into digital format and then getting those things really into their daily life. And then this could be like a sequence of things. Those things are coming as a novel, as a like a note in a newspaper or something, and then somebody just click something for them, and then they have the development capability and get those things done. And one of the things that we quite like the embedded done for the next works actually, because what happens is give you all the tools that you can build things on the frameworks that are already there. It's like the cloud systems these days are helping a lot in many different ways. I remember Chris was addressing implementing new solutions in a couple of clicks on AWS, which is exactly right. And basically, if you want to create a solution for any problem, it took like honestly days or weeks back then just to creating to 0 point. But now all of them are packaged through the Kubernetes, through the clusters, ready-made systems, then I can just get them up and running in a few seconds or minutes, and then testing your idea if it's working or not, and then moving on to the next idea and all those sort of things. It makes a lot of difference in terms of the creativity, I would say, and then give you required tools to test your ideas and then getting those things working. And then, yeah, Salesforce, for example, these days are really getting a lot of attentions besides and most of the other solutions that for, because Salesforce is pretty much like covering many aspects of different businesses. If you have an idea of to create a business yourself, that could be like a good start there as well. However, it's more about like mid-size level to large level. But with the improvements on the cloud, we can just start them from the beginning and even not spending millions of dollars, which like 20 years ago, when you wanted to really create a outstanding system that works really well across, even for a small business, could cost hundreds of thousands or $1 million. But now it could be as low as a couple of $100. But however, still, if you are like a large business, it's going to cost millions of dollars. But I'm just talking about the startups, and then capabilities are given to the startups to build their system, basically. Yeah. Nice.
Right. Looking at the chat, there's a few more questions that have come through.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what Roshan meant. What is your thought on the recent AI intern? Maybe I'm just out of touch.
As a Is it with Nextworks or?
No, there was a recent story. They created an intern, AI intern. I'm sure you guys saw it. Hold on, I think I'm
Not.
gonna send the article. Better send you the article. The AI intern created
Oh,
recently.
I understand. I think I had a quick look into that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's- yeah, if I'm not wrong, it's kind of like an AI assistant. And basically, whatever like that ChatGPT doing these days. Let's say if you're starting a business and you have thousands of questions, and then all those questions, if you want to hire a expert to give you an insight about those questions, probably pretty much you can just do on an AI system. Let me open these.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I read these specific ones, but yeah, pretty much it's just about, to me at least, I'm using AI system for a couple of years, and then more recently, and then if I have an idea and then I want to test it and say if the because sometimes the idea is like quite niche, and then when you are searching on Google, you're ending up with irrelevant data, irrelevant pages coming up, and then sometimes they are just based on the search engine optimization, and then you're actually that's one of the faults of people like me as well. I'm helping companies to further making their contents optimized for the Google searches. But at the end, are they really answering all the questions asked on the Google or not? That's another story. And then Google is working on that. But let's say with the AI assistant or an AI intern, pretty much you can ask questions or giving tasks on those things. And you might heard about the ChatGPT can create like a coding framework to start the coding on different systems, which is fantastic. Still, you can do it through the Google, and you can ask Google, okay, what's the minimum requirements to create, for example, that code on that platform? And you're ending up with an article somewhere that give you step-by-step developing that system. Well, what happens with the ChatGPT and then other AI system? They pretty much gone through all those different articles, and then they process that and find which is might be more relevant, and then picking them up and then giving you the answer. But it's, and as you see on the ChatGPT, it's not always accurate, it's not always relevant, and it's not always reliable. But what's helpful there is at least give you some idea, and then if it's when we call it as an intern, this basically means that it's not a professional idea. Still, you count it as a first step to the door, and then you can having it as a starting point, and then further research and further develop your knowledge around that, I would say.
Actually, I was gonna say, do you think they'll replace? Human in terms of human jobs?
Yeah, it's a very hard question to answer, to be honest. In near future, it's very unlikely. Let's say in a couple of years, but they are definitely would be more and more used with startups to get the very basic things done. But when you're talking about an intern that can really make a system work, still this system having a lot way to go forward, and they're getting things done. And you know that the other day when the CEO of the Google address, and they asked why you don't do you have like a AI system like ChatGPT, and why you are not making it public? And they answered that yes, we have it, but we can't really because of the concerns around that, especially with the bigger companies. And that's actually a very legitimate concern, because right now still they are all learning, and then with the fuller scope of things that an intern can do, they can do small things. But I read the other day, I guess on the LinkedIn, that was very interesting, say that the ChatGPT is not going to replace you, but you're going to be replaced by somebody that's going to use ChatGPT. And that was like, I said, oh, that's kind of like true. And then you can use that as a tool for yourself getting you ahead of others, and then say that, yeah, and getting your expertise built faster and faster. What I can say at the end is, the more knowledge that you have, the more creative you are, the more critical thinker you are, lesser chance that AIs can replace you in the near future. But I'm not sure. I can't guarantee that when the quantum computing coming, that might replace me immediately. But that sort of things could be very tricky, because quantum computing is also still like a very an infant baby, a lot way going forward, and then still there are people going to develop quantum computers. But just last sentence here. The real moment is when a quantum computer can build and further enhance another quantum computer. That's a scary time, I'll say. They can do things without our help. That would be quite a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
May I ask a question a little bit different than this topic? So since you
Sure.
mentioned the people who do not learn to use new technology may be replaced because they don't have that competency. So on that note, for people like me who is trying to change career and wanting to come to the IT industry, and what suggestion do you give? Plus, what might be the good place to start as a job in
Sure.
case of to catch up this fast moving technology, in your opinion?
Absolutely. Actually, Puro, am I right? Am I getting your name
Yes.
right, Puro? Yeah. So, what's your background, Puro?
I have done many things, but recently I was doing retail management. Before
Fantastic.
that, I was basically on sales and business development role.
Fantastic.
Completely sales, marketing,
Yeah.
commercial part, not anything about product as
Yeah.
well.
When you say many things, actually, that's your strengths, because you learn a lot of different things, and then you know how to connect different things, which an AI system is still learning that. And then you can enhance different things based on your experience, which is invaluable. It's very important. You remember on my slides, I addressed point of view. That's the things I would say make you different from any other intern. And basically, how you see the things make you unique, and then make your input to that role unique, and you get the things done faster or differently comparing to other people. And an example is myself. I was doing e-commerce system for many, many years. And then I was doing it for thousands of customers, honestly. It's like for quite 20 years. And then after 10, 15 years, I started really going to see the retailers face to face in the store, talking to the retail manager, talking to the cashier. And when I had that experience, I was like, honestly, awakening for me. So, gosh, I was thinking many things wrong, because I saw it as a development point of view. It was all about technology, computer. I was talking to the codes and said, I want this, 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 and this is works best for me. And it's not necessarily true for all clients. And even for the visitors to the different website, you see different navigation, and then that could be like different, because there are different websites, different businesses having different range of customers, and they might like something that is not really the same as other part of the business. What I want to say, your experience, if you get that translated into your work, can help a lot. Let's say, if you understand the frustrations of the customers when they're working as a retailer in a retail shop, then you can see how you can make a system that reduce that frustration. And that would be like a win for that business that you are going to work with, because they're going to be having a better customer support, and then they're getting more repeat customers, and that's the value that can add to the system. And then what the other part of your question is where you can start. I would say you got already started. I mean, when you're enrolling these programs, you're really getting on the ladder, and then you're learning things. And then while you're learning here, something that I was always practicing myself, there is no right or wrong. It's just different ways. Honestly, to build one system, you can do 100 different ways. And then your unique way could be really beating any other way when you get your experience there, I would say. That's from my personal experience. And then I hope that helped.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. Yeah.
No worries. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting on that. I think we've got quite a few people who are switching careers, right? Going from something completely different into tech or into AWS or Salesforce or Azure. And a lot of the time it's almost like you have to leave what you've done in a locked box. Like you shouldn't talk about it. No one should know about it. But I think what we're finding and what you were saying is that that's actually very valuable. Like a lot of people don't have it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that exactly happened to myself. I mean, and then my background is like, I've done my bachelor in physics. It is not relevant to computer. However, I started programming when I was in high school and secondary school. But the insights that I got from physics to programming and then solution developing, that was make me different, because I could see things that other people couldn't. And then if somebody coming from another business, they having things that I don't have. Because when you are working few years one-to-one with the customers, that give you an insight that I don't have. And then I can say that makes a lot of difference when you're getting into a business, that it can help them to build things. And that's saying, I guess, correct me if I'm not wrong, that's kind of like threatening like an old developer, isn't it? It's kind of like we're replacing the old developers with the new fresh bloods. Then they are kind of like getting things done differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's super cool. All right, we've only got a few more minutes left. So I know some people have got 1 o'clock things that they need to run off to. So does anyone have any other questions, any last questions, either related to what we've talked about or maybe completely different? I've actually got one that was quite different. So I was talking with a student earlier today and about DevOps and about CI/CD pipelines and how on earth this all fits in with everything else. And if you're coming from a background where you've never dealt with this before, it can be very, very intimidating to be thinking about this and talking about this. Like, it's hard enough to just understand the stuff. You know, what do you mean I've got to do all this other? So I was wondering if maybe for the last thing you could perhaps, I don't know, give a bit of an intro into what that is, why it's important. There's a lot of talk about it recently. And it's quite different to what we've talked about, but maybe,
Yeah, absolutely. As it's a CI/CD address, did I get it right? Yeah. Continuous integration and continuous development is definitely a necessity these days. It's like back, again, getting it through the history. It's like 10 years, 20 years ago, when the agile was not there, or it was just a very baby steps back then, or just like large companies starting to adopting that. Like, development was done in chunks. They're getting the first phase done, getting it launched, and then starting next phase could take months or years, and then getting the old data migrated to the new system is a disaster, to be honest. And then when you are thinking of a lot of other things could happen, when then phase 2 is running, after a couple of months of development and testing our stuff, still when they're going live with the next version, that could be shut down for the whole system for a day, a couple of hours or whatever, and then getting that live could start off a lot of different problems happening. But the things happening these days with the help of the code repositories and then all backend things are fascinating, to be honest. Sometimes it's just a matter of changing from the processing unit to another one. Then basically you are developing a part of the, one page on the whole system, and then you know that you do the run test on a branch of the old coding, and then you get that sorted and decide, oh yes, that's an improvement comparing that to what happens like 10 years ago, like the whole phase 2 things. This is just 1 out of 1,000, and then it might just happen the same day in a daily agile meeting, and then you find like a customer reported a bug which never seen before by development team. And then the fix is quite simple. What happens is just they do the change on a branch of the live version, and then see that if that is working, and they're going through the test process. If everything's fine, they're just merging it to the live version and done. After a couple of minutes, that's basically making it live. This looks a little bit complex and simple together. I would making like a metaphor. You really don't need to know how the engine of a car working to drive it. You know, it works like that, and then this is manual, this is automatic. There's kind of like changing between automatic to from manual to automatic. It's still same car, still everything. The engine might be slightly different, other stuff, but still you really don't need to about how CI/CD is working. But you know that automation is there. You're working on a branch of the code and on a code repository and doing the changes, and then when you are tested and making sure that part going live. And that's the beauty of it, because it's really doesn't need to be waited for another couple of weeks until a new release of a bigger version. You can improve the system on the go, and then nobody really realize. I'm on the website, I see one page. When I refreshing, that bug is gone, and now the new code kick in, and then I don't see that bug. I quite like that idea. It's kind of like, and then when you are in the team's development team, that will be pretty much simple. They get you on board. I'm not sure, is it a part of the curriculum that you have? But yeah, as it says, kind of like really not needed. When you are in the team, they're just describing it just a couple of minutes that you grasp it, and then that's all. It's really not like that much complex. It's just between manual and automatic cars, and then you're getting it in less than 1 hour, and you already know how to drive.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think the last thing that we usually ask our guest speakers is, do you have any advice for people who are starting out, who are on a cloud journey, who are thinking about getting into this world? What would be your advice for people who are just getting started?
Oh, good question. What I'm doing myself is like everyday learning. If you want to be in your head, honestly, you came to an era that's fantastic, changing every day. And then if you assign, I'm doing it myself. I assign a couple of minutes, sometimes more or less, to learn about the new technologies kick in, and then learn about the areas that I'm working in, and then all the things that I can add in a short time or longer time, then I plan for that. And then you are always ahead, and then you always make a difference between you and others. Then after a year, you don't really need like a week or 2 weeks of full-time learning to catch up with the new tech. You're always on the edge when you're having that learning. That helped me a lot. Hopefully that can always give you that edge, being always at the top.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's so good. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for your time. That was
my
really,
pleasure.
really interesting. I think that wasn't where I expected it to go, but it was so good. I loved it. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much.
It's my
Yeah, if
pleasure.
everyone
Thank
can
you for
just-
having me.
Yeah, pop
Yeah,
it in the
enjoy the
chat.
rest of the
Thank you
day.
so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see you.
All right.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Bye.
See you. Bye.